Hi, I'm Nicholas Corey and you're watching my video series RPG Design, where I build a tabletop RPG system from the ground up and you are following along for the ride. In the last two videos we talked about the core mechanics, which in this case are dice pools, how they interact with each other and how the players use them. And then we also talked about creating a PC, which is of course every player's favorite part of any RPG. But today we're going to talk about every player's second favorite part of any RPG, and that's character progression. So let's go ahead and take a look at our prototype character sheet here. It's not pretty, but please bear with me. So, character progression. This game uses what's called Destiny, which basically replaces your experience points or whatever other game uses to call character progression and to measure it. We use Destiny points, which is the unit of measurement for this. In this game, characters are going to be gaining between 1 and 3, 1 to 4 Destiny per game session. How do they gain these Destiny? Well, one way to do so, or rather 1 Destiny per game session, can be gained through acting in accordance to the character's values. In the last video, we talked specifically about values and what they mean, how they're the character's motivations and ideals, what they believe in, what they think is important in the world. If you, as your character, make significant or consistent choices with your values. So if you make one big, significant, consequential choice, or if you make many choices over the course of the game session that all fall in line with your values, then the GM can give you 1 Destiny at the end of the session based off your choices. If you don't act in accordance to your values, well then you don't gain Destiny. Simple as that. That's one way to gain Destiny. Another way is if the players made significant progress in the story, or if they role-played or played their character to a certain degree. Again, that's totally up to the GM's interpretation. If the GM thinks, they made a lot of progress in the story or in the campaign today, then I'm going to give them a Destiny for that. Or rather, they didn't make a lot of progress, but their RP was really, really good, even though they just sat in the tavern all night, I'll give them one Destiny for that. Now, obviously, the GM's going to want to think about awarding Destiny based off of RP, especially if the group isn't making any progress. But then again, if that's what the players like to do and the GM is okay with it, there's no reason they can't earn Destiny from just sitting in the tavern and RPing all night. The third way to gain Destiny is to do so in accordance to the game's theme. Now, once I actually sit down to write this book, this RPG book, there will be a lot more information around theming a game, choosing the main theme, that sort of thing. But currently I have it broken down into 4 different aspects, which are combat, investigation, exploration, and wow, and now I can't remember the 4th one. Combat, investigation, exploration, and some mystery. Oh, social! Social encounters. So depending on the type of game you're playing, the more your characters encounter or complete aspects of the game in relation to that theme. So if you're playing a superhero game and your theme is combat, then there will be certain parameters that should be met, and if they're met for at least 1 combat encounter, then the characters will gain a Destiny. So looking at this, you can see that characters will be gaining generally between 1 and 3 Destiny per session. Now, how do we use that Destiny? If you notice up here in our Destiny box, we have a current and a total spot for recording Destiny. That means that the total is how much total Destiny a character has earned throughout their entire career, and current is how much they currently have on them that hasn't been spent. Destiny, unlike experience points in a lot of games, Destiny will be spent to increase aspects of the character in between game sessions. It's recommended it's done in between game sessions because that allows the players to have a full game session of their character in their current state before they progress anything. So what do we spend our Destiny on? Well, first we can spend it on our skills. If we look here at our might skills, we have two-handed sword and physical resistance, both at 1. Now what if we want to spend Destiny to raise those? How do we do that? Well, it costs 1 Destiny per rank until you meet your attribute, your linked attribute value. So, in other words, if I wanted to raise physical resistance to 2, that would cost me 1 Destiny point. If I want to raise it from 2 to 3, that would cost me 1 Destiny point. And then once it's at 3, it's linked to, or it's meeting the linked attribute value. So physical resistance is 3, might is 3. That's as high as it'll go for 1 Destiny. Now if I wanted to raise physical resistance from 3 to 4, and might is still at 3, then that would cost me 2 destiny. So, as you can see, I'm pushing my physical resistance skill past the might attribute. And so that's kind of where it starts to cost more. So how do we raise our attributes? Well, also with destiny. Surprise, surprise. But however, it's a lot more difficult to raise attributes with destiny because raising attributes via destiny costs a number of destiny equal to your next rank plus 1. So to go from might 3 to might 4 will cost 5 destiny. To go from agility 2 to agility 3 will cost 4 destiny. It's very costly, and it's hard to do, and the higher you get, the harder it is to raise it. But that simply means that that's simply because the attributes are more widely used than your skills. The attributes are more of a general test, and so therefore, to balance out that power, it's more difficult to raise them. How else can we spend destiny? We can also spend it via our talents. Now, if we look here, and if you remember from the last video, we talked about talents and how they can be upgraded. Some talents, such as Hard to Harm, for instance, can be upgraded. You spend 2 destiny and you get Hard to Harm 2. I think it's 2 destiny. I don't have it in front of me. Usually upgrading a talent reduces its die cost, increases its effect, something like that. If you were to upgrade Heavy Strike to Heavy Strike 2, then it goes from costing 3 dice to 2 dice to execute. So you spend 2 dice and gain +1 damage instead of 3 dice +1 damage. So you can upgrade your current talents. Another way to spend destiny, or another thing you can spend destiny on, is you can purchase new talents from your current traits. So if, for instance, this character has Heavy Strike already, if I wanted him to get another buff trait, such as Grappler, that would cost me 1 destiny, and he would gain the trait Grappler, and then the effects from that. And then if I wanted to upgrade Grappler to Grappler 2, it would cost 2 destiny, and it would go forward like that. So all the traits are going to be listed in the book with their specific costs, and their effects, and their upgrades, and all that. That's another way to spend destiny. But that's not it. Another thing to do is, and one thing that's very interesting in the course of a game session, is dynamic characters. And what I mean by that is characters whose physical personality or even their values change over time. So let's say you're playing for a while, and this character has order and justice, but let's say something in the story happens that makes him begin to question his devotion to the current order. And that, if the player wants it, could trigger a dynamic change, or at least start it. And what that means is the character has these boxes over here for dynamic values and dynamic traits. And what they can do is once per game session, they can take whatever destiny, they can take one of the destiny they've earned and put it in one of these boxes. Each box can have, you can put 1 in each box each game session. So you could, if you earn 3 destiny, you could put 1 in values, 1 in traits, and leave 1 as current. Once dynamic values reaches a total of 5 destiny, and once dynamic traits equals a total of 4 destiny, you can then swap out one of your values. Once it reaches 5 destiny, you can swap out a value for its opposite. So for instance, if something makes him question his devotion to this order, once he reaches 5 destiny in dynamic values, we would swap order for reform. And now, rather than being someone who supports the current regime, he is now someone who wants to overthrow the current regime, or at least change it to some degree. Likewise, reckless, for instance, let's say that let's say something happens because of his recklessness that causes him to think, maybe I shouldn't be so reckless, maybe I should rein it in a little bit. Well then, once dynamic traits destiny gets to 4, we can swap reckless with something else. And like that, those are the basic ways that we use destiny to progress our character. Eventually, I'm going to come back to here now, eventually I might have like a rank system, like Expert, Master, Grandmaster in there to kind of mirror a level system, but they'd be much wider, like Expert to Master might be like 5 levels or something like that, but I haven't worked the details out about that yet. But anyway, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.